Welcome to this explainer. We hear the word economics absolutely constantly, right? It's on the news, in politics, popping up around the dinner table. But honestly, its core mechanics can still feel completely opaque. So today we're going to demystify this massive topic. We're breaking it down from these intimidating global abstractions right into your living room. Let's get right into it. To kick things off, we really need to ask the most fundamental question here. What exactly is economics? Now, when you hear that word, your mind probably jumps immediately to complicated numbers, crashing stock markets, or, complex financial models and wild market volatility. But actually, economics is far more human and a lot more relatable than those confusing financial tickers make it seem. Get this, the actual root of the word economics comes from the ancient Greek word oikonomia, and that translates simply to the art of managing one's household well. Pretty surprising, right? It wasn't originally about global trade or international banking. It was literally just about running a home efficiently. But of course, today, the house we all have to manage together is our entire planet. Section 1. The Dilemma of Scarcity. The reality that we simply cannot have it all. Okay, let's dive into this fundamental tension. On one side, our wants are pretty much infinite. We continually desire more time, better vacations, improved services, you name it. But pulling in the exact opposite direction, our resources to actually fulfill those wants are strictly limited. We only have so much time, so many raw materials, and obviously a finite amount of money. This massive gap, this constant tug-of-war tension between infinite desires and finite means, creates what economists call scarcity. And scarcity is literally the true starting point of all economic science. So because of this scarcity, we're forced to make choices every single day. Let's bring this concept right into your living room and rethink some everyday personal choices. Ask yourself this: what is the true cost of sitting down to watch an hour of a TV show? You're probably thinking, well, I already paid my streaming subscription, so the cost is basically zero, right? Well, not quite. This is where economics introduces us to the concept of opportunity cost. The true cost of watching that show isn't zero. It's actually the exact value of the best alternative you had to give up to do it. Those are your hidden costs. In that 1 hour, you could have read a book, you could have called a friend, or hit the gym and exercised. When you start seeing your daily choices through this lens of opportunity cost, it completely changes how you value your time and resources. Basically, every choice is a trade-off. And this brilliantly illustrates the two main lenses economists use to look at all these choices. Think of it kind of like a camera. Microeconomics is the zoom lens. We're examining the decisions of a single person, a family, or one specific business. We're looking at one single tree. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, is the wide-angle lens. We zoom way out to look at the entire forest, focusing on huge phenomena that affect a whole country, things like overall growth, unemployment, and inflation. Section 2. The mechanics of the market. Let's look under the hood. Producing anything in our economy is honestly a lot like following a literal recipe. And here are the 4 essential ingredients, what economists actually call the factors of production. First up, land, which means all our natural resources. Second, labor, which is human effort. Third is capital, and I really want to clarify something crucial here. In economics, capital isn't just a big pile of money. We're talking about the actual tools, the machines, and the factories used to build other things. And finally, the 4th ingredient is entrepreneurship. That's the creative spark that combines those first 3 ingredients to build something entirely new. But how in the world do we organize all these ingredients on a massive national scale? Well, enter one of the most famous metaphors in the history of ideas, Adam Smith's invisible hand. At first glance, the idea seems completely counterintuitive. Smith argued that when a business selfishly pursues profit and a consumer selfishly seeks the lowest prices, things don't descend into total chaos. Instead, this invisible hand strangely coordinates everything to ultimately benefit society as a whole. So the crucial point here is, what exactly is the secret behind this invisible hand? How does it actually communicate? Well, the secret is prices. We really have to stop looking at prices as just random tags on a shelf. Prices are super powerful information signals. When a price goes up, it's essentially shouting out loud, hey, this product is rare, or people really, really want it right now. And that signal tells producers exactly what they need to know. Make more of this. It's this beautiful, constant dance of prices that directs resources exactly where society needs them most. Section 3, the role of the state. Because if the invisible hand is so efficient, why do we even need the government to step in? The answer is pretty simple. The invisible hand isn't perfect. Sometimes it flat out fails, and it needs a push from a very visible hand, the state. The government basically wears three hats in the economy. First is allocation, stepping in when the market fails, like enforcing rules against unchecked pollution simply because a single business has zero financial incentive to do so. Second is redistribution, stepping in to correct extreme imbalances of wealth. And third is regulation, steering the ship during massive economic storms like huge spikes in unemployment or periods of extreme inflation. To really understand that second hat, redistribution, we have to talk about inequality. Economists use the tool called the Gini index to measure the wealth gap in a society. I want you to keep one specific number in mind, 100. As a country scores inches closer to this absolute number, it means its wealth gap is becoming extremely dangerously unequal. The state's role in redistributing wealth is directly aimed at keeping societies from reaching this critical tipping point. Because different countries view the role of the state differently, we end up with different economic systems. On one extreme, you have the planned economy, like the ex-USSR, where the state controls almost everything. On the totally opposite extreme is free enterprise, like the USA, aiming for the absolute minimum possible state role. But right in the middle, you find mixed economies, like what we see in Quebec, for example. These systems try to strike a balance. They harness the dynamic energy of the free market while using the state to protect citizens and regulate excesses. Section 4. Measuring true success. How do we actually know if any of these economic systems are working? For decades, we've relied heavily on the undisputed king of all indicators, the one you literally hear about constantly, the gross domestic product, or GDP. Quite simply, the GDP measures the sum of all the wealth and value created in a country over a single year. When the evening news talks about economic growth, this is exactly what they are measuring. But here's the catch. While GDP measures raw financial growth perfectly, it has massive, undeniable blind spots. The GDP can skyrocket while wealth inequality completely explodes. Even worse, there's a dark irony built right into it. Think about this. If an absolute ecological disaster happens, the massive financial cost of rebuilding actually makes the GDP go up. It's crazy. The GDP counts a lot of things, for sure, but it is completely blind to environmental health, volunteer work, and our general well-being. Ultimately, it measures transactions, not necessarily progress. Fortunately, economists realized we really needed a smarter alternative, which brings us to the Human Development Index, or HDI. Instead of just staring at the cash register, the HDI asks a much deeper, more holistic question. It combines per capita income with life expectancy and education levels. It's asking the real questions. Are people actually living richer, healthier, longer, and more educated lives? It paints a vastly more complete picture of human advancement than GDP ever could. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important thought to wrap up our explainer today. If we know for a fact that GDP has all these blind spots, are we using a false compass? Is our relentless global obsession with pure GDP growth actually blinding us to what truly matters for human progress? It's a profound question, and it goes way beyond economics. It affects every single one of us in our shared global household. Think about that the next time you hear someone talking about the economy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.